Hello and welcome to the Center for Spiritually Integrated Arts, a Centers for Spiritual Living teaching center. I am Reverend Dr. Raymont Anderson. I am the founder and the spiritual director. Now, as you are sitting there joining us, you may have questions, any number of questions, such as, who am I? How did I get here? Spiritually integrated arts means what exactly? What is a teaching center? Well, what is Centers for Spiritual Living? What is that? What does that even mean? Or New Thought, or religious science, or science of mind and spirit? You may have any number of questions about this specific community, about the parent organization, CSL, our philosophy, our teaching, our liberation theology. Any number of questions. Feel free to send an email. We look forward to connecting more and building our virtual community, our global community. And if you haven't connected yet on social media, feel free to do so. This is your invitation now. Also, did you know that all of our Sunday messages are archived on our YouTube channel? You can watch it anytime. Now, questions about anything, such as becoming a member. What does that mean? What does membership entail? And if you live somewhere far and already belong to a spiritual community, can you be a member of more than one? The simple answer is yes, you can. Just like you can shop at more than one grocery store, you can attend or be a member of more than one gym. We are building beloved community. So you can do both. You can be a member of both. You can be involved with both. That's what being in spiritual community means. So we welcome you. We invite you. We are so appreciative that you have found this community and that you have joined us today. We bless you. We love you. We welcome you. Live long and prosper. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the rest of our Sunday message. Love you. Connect with you soon. Blessings. Namaste and greetings. The steps we take. What steps? Where are we taking them? This week, we are going to explore the process, the steps we take that engage in the process of self-actualization that gives us the ability to move from whatever, average, bad, whatever that is, to good, from good to great, from great to grand. Note, once again, reminder that even while being in the state of grandness or grandeur, the grand does not mean we will not experience days that are blah. Self actualization doesn't mean there will not be sadness or grief. It's important to realize and keep that in our mind. So, the steps that move us through this process to this new actualized way of being. Now, part of the process or part of the steps involved include our mental equivalent and how we intentionally and consciously set them and live and move and have our beingness in alignment with them. Now, I say plural, mental equivalence, once again, because we can have a mental equivalent as it relates to finance, money, a mental equivalent as it relates to family, friends, and relationship, a mental equivalent regarding our physical body, health, and well being. Thus, plural, mental equivalents. And how do we intentionally set them, consciously set them, and live in alignment with them? How do we live in harmony? This active, harmonious way of being our authentic selves, our transparent selves, and activating that expression in how we show up in our individual lives when we're by ourselves and when we show up in community. How are we being our authentic, transparent, actualized selves? Now, one thing we are invited to do is engage in more self-introspection, self-reflection, meditation, contemplation, mindfulness. And there are many ways that we can engage in that kind of activity. Visioning, prayer, as I said, meditation, journaling, a mindful meditation walk, even engaging in the creative aspects of the arts can put us into a zone where we go within in order to create, to express. So, whatever it is, if it's knitting or cooking, whatever it is that gives you the capacity to go within beliefs and paradigms and consciousness, thoughts and feelings and emotions that then show up as our actions. So, whatever is going to give you the ability to self reflect, to be introspective, to gain greater awareness of what are your values? What are you passionate about? What purposes have you chosen as the guiding energy of your life? Because when we have greater awareness of these things, then we are able to more effectively walk the walk. We are more effectively able to live in a way where we are allowing ourselves to be in alignment with principles, to live our lives from this place of our deepest core truth, whatever that is. So, for example, suppose you value beauty, that core truth. How are you allowing that core truth to be expressed? If you value laughter, how are you allowing that core to be expressed? When we have clearer intentions, it is easier to set goals for our own personal, individual growth and discovery, evolution, as well as for the collective. Now, it's important to keep in mind, as with most things we practice, it's an ongoing process. It's not a one and you're done. This is not a microwavable dinner where you put it in, push some buttons, and ding, it's done in 30 seconds. This is a slow cooker kind of thing where you put it in and then several hours later, or as my father's sister, my Aunt Alcia, who used to make fruitcake every year before she made her transition, she started making it 6 months before December when she would start handing it out. It's a long process, and ideally, this process, the steps that we take should last forever, last our entire lifetime. Now, one thing you'll notice that I highlighted some of the words and phrases, and I invite you to come back and reflect on these and ask yourself, for example, for me, what is self-actualization? How does that show up in my life? What are my mental equivalents, and how do I set them or align with them intentionally? What do I do that is self-reflective? How do I engage in introspection, etc.? And for me, what would be a catalyst for my continued evolution? What will keep me ever evolving? So if you're ready, Viktor Frankl offers us the idea of self-actualization. It cannot be attained if it is made an end in itself. In other words, self-actualization simply for the sake of self-actualization, which we could say the same thing about enlightenment. Enlightenment for the sake of itself. Enlightenment is pointless. He goes on to say, but it is only a side effect of self-transcendence. Self-transcendence. So self-actualization is a side effect of self-transcendence. And Abraham Maslow invites us, what a person can be, they must be. This need we call self-actualization. Now let's put them together. What a person can be, they must be. This need to be what we must be, we call self-actualization, which cannot be attained if it is made to be its own self-serving end. Because what it actually is a side effect of self-transcendence. And we're going to talk more about that momentarily. But let's revisit Maslow's hierarchy. Many of us are familiar with this idea. And many of us move through it and we get to a certain point and we're like, I'm good, I'm comfortable, rather than continue moving. Now, as I said before, once you get to grand, it doesn't mean you're not going to
feel sad, grief, angry, etc. In the same way, this pyramid, once you reach self-actualization, doesn't mean once you've gotten to the top of the pyramid, I no longer need food, water, or sleep. I am a breatharian. Simply breathing nourishes. Doesn't mean that. So the pyramid idea is sort of really tricky because it gives us the idea that once you move up, whatever's at the bottom is no longer needed. But whatever's at the bottom is supporting what comes on top, is supporting what comes on top, is supporting what comes on top. So, where in here are you missing something? Are your needs related to love and belonging? Are they being met? Because, for example, mine aren't. So I'm invited to realize that and then do something about it. But if I can't even recognize it or I don't want to face it, then how do I move up to greater esteem, grand esteem? Now, as we look at this in a different way, self-actualization relates to your morality, creativity, etc. So once again, as you look at these various things, where are you not quote unquote satisfied? Where are you not? Where are your needs not being met? Dennis Merritt Jones offers us to be impeccable in our word is to bring our spoken word, and it doesn't have to be spoken because he says, and our unspoken intention. So to be impeccable in our word, to be impeccable in how we communicate, is to bring all of our communication and our unspoken, uncommunicated intentions into alignment so that the inner and the outer action, so the inner thought and the outer action are one and the same. Now I specify because he says spoken word. I specify communication because it can be a text. If I'm going to be impeccable with my word, then it should be verbal, signed, written, text, etc. And whatever the intentions are, so that my inner and outer life experiences are one and the same, are in alignment. So, what are your intentions? Going back to Maslow, and we think about the hierarchy, we have certain things that are needs and certain things that are wants. And oftentimes we get these confused. Oftentimes, the person who is robbing someone has confused a need with a want. I want that watch. And they want it as though they need it. I need to have that watch. No, you don't need it. You say you do, but you don't. I need Netflix. You don't need it. You want it. So being able to clarify, what do I need versus what do I want? What do I want, but think or say that, how do I communicate? Do I ever reference a want as though it's a need? Right? So gaining greater clarity means asking ourselves, what do I want? What do I need? And being able to distinguish between the two. Because if we can't distinguish, then we're not really going to know what our intentions are, what's driving the intentions. And anything regarding this spiritual practice, teaching, philosophy, it comes back to what is the energy, what are the beliefs, what are the mental equivalents that are showing up, internal, external, individually, collectively. Because I guarantee you, if we really understood as a society the intention that creates war, then there would be no war, because we would realize that that intention and this experience, there is no way these are in alignment in a way where, oh, for example, my intention is to create peace, and I'm creating peace by dropping a bomb. What? So, our invitation, get really clear on what is motivating. What are the intentions? Where are they coming from? Maslow says a musician must make music. An artist must create art. A poet must create poetry if they are to be ultimately happy, which I would say if they are to be ultimately satisfied. That which you are must. So what is your must? See, the way he's phrasing this is a need. The musician must make music. It's to not do so would be to deny themselves, which would be detrimental to their health and well-being. Therefore, it's a need. To which we may say, well, how is that? Let's have that conversation. If the musician must make music, we must breathe, we must eat. An artist must paint or sculpt or draw. Must. Then what are the ramifications of not doing it? If they are to ultimately be satisfied, to be happy, then to not do it is to ultimately be dissatisfied and unhappy. So ask yourself, what must I do? For you in your life, what is your I must do this? And be mindful that, does it rely on someone else? For example, if I say, I must raise my children. Well, what happens when they are grown? Now, you could say, I must love them, but I must raise them. Well, what happens when they're grown and they're on their own? Because a lot of people think they get into a space of, I am my job. Now, there's a difference between I am what I do and I am what is done, what I am being. There's a very, very thin and very blurry line. Because I could say, a teacher must teach. Now, if I identify my role as say, a middle school teacher, and then I reach an age where I have now retired, I am no longer in that job. But if I say, as a teacher, I must teach, and I'm no longer in that job, then my beingness is no longer fulfilled, right? But it's not about the job. Because if I say as a teacher, I must teach, then I'm going to teach if I'm there, if I'm doing this, if I'm doing that. The space, the place is everything and everywhere, ultimately. It's not identified with, I'm the CEO of this company, and as a CEO, I must. Well, what happens when you retire? And that role is no longer very thin, very blurry line. But that which we must be, that which we must do, that which we are, isn't relegated to a particular label or box per se. Follow what I'm saying? If not, feel free to send me an email or a text message or whatnot. We can have a conversation and we can, dive a little deeper, because I know within the time frame of what we have here on Sunday, sometimes I throw things out there and you're like, that was a really large bite and I needed Reverend Ray to cut it into little smaller bites for me. Never hesitate to reach out, because I know there are a lot of times that for linguistic purposes, I will give a huge concept that we don't really have the time to break down and fine tune. And this is one of them. So, in the idea of what must I do, I want you to pause and listen to something that Miles Davis said.
Would you be a musician if nobody ever heard you? Sure. Why? Because I love music. It's in my head. I can't get it out. Okay, listen. Yeah. You're hearing it yourself. I hear it now.
What seeks to be expressed in, through, and as you, no matter what. Got that? You say no? Let's listen to him once again.
Would you be a musician if nobody ever heard you? Sure. Why? Because I love music. It's in my head. I can't get it out. Okay, listen. Yeah. You're hearing it yourself. I hear it now.
What seeks to be expressed in, through, and as you, no matter what. How is the universe wanting to be expressed in, through, and as you, no matter what? Eckhart Tolle says, when the basis of your actions is inner alignment in the present moment, your actions become empowered with the intelligence of life itself. There is only one life, and that life is God. When the basis of your actions is inner alignment in the present moment, your actions become empowered with the intelligence, the wisdom, the bliss, the passion of life itself. Do you do what you say? Do you live in alignment with, I'm going to go to the gym. And the last time I went to the gym was 1812. Why do you keep saying you're going to the gym when? Are we true to our word? Do we have integrity? Are we impeccable with our communication, with our word? Is the interaction or the inner alignment, the inner activity of consciousness and the outer expression of it, are they in alignment? If so, then our experience, our actions, the activity will be empowered, will be fueled with the very intelligence and wisdom of life itself. Now, referencing this idea of alignment, you've heard me say this before. We are always aligned, one way or another. Are we aligned in a life-affirming or a life-denying way? Does the alignment support what you say you desire and what you deserve to experience? Does the alignment afford you the ability to live as you desire, or does it support the opposite? Does it support the antithesis of what you desire and deserve? We are always aligned. And it is important to be mindful of, to remember that sometimes the various alignments are not of our choosing. And yet we can make the needed adjustments, the needed alignment in order to live our best lives. So we are going from good to great to grand. Now, this specifically is referencing the idea that in each of these examples, the spine is aligned. It's still one solid, in whatever form it's taking, it's still aligned. And yet, some of the alignment is going to impact how the person moves through their life. And the invitation is to say, there are some things that are beyond my control, some alignments or misalignment, quote unquote, that I can't change per se, but I can change how I respond to it and still navigate and still have a degree of spiritual, moral, emotional mobility and empowerment to still live life on my terms, on our terms. So rather than saying, oh man, such and such, such and such, such and such. Yes, there is a non-alignment regarding how finances occur in a toxic capitalistic nation. Yes. But rather than, oh man, this is not fair. What do you do about it? Are you praying regarding it? Do you ever meditate about it? When you think about it or contemplate it, are you contemplating it and thinking of it in a way where you are changing those structures so that no matter what is out of alignment or misaligned or whatever language we want to use, we are still able to live in a way that we are moving to self-actualization and self-transcendence, no matter what. Once again, be mindful that sometimes the various alignments are not of our choosing, and yet we can make the needed adjustments. We can make the needed alignments in order to live our best lives, going from whatever this is to good, from good to great, and from great to grand. Our beliefs, our words, our emotions, and our actions connect to one another. They connect to others, and they are always influencing and impacting our lives in one way or another. Always. Doesn't matter if it's this huge, major, impactful, doesn't matter. Whether it's a mosquito bite or a pimple or a burn on the stove while cooking. One is more painful. The irritation is there for both. Whatever, it does not matter the grandeur or the size or all of our beliefs, words, emotions, and actions connect to all others. And they are always, in one way, shape, or form, influencing and impacting our lives individually and collectively. And remember, there are those individual mental equivalents and the collective mental equivalent, or the collective consciousness, which we change by self-actualizing ourselves and changing ours, and then engaging with others who also change, who also change, who also change, So my beliefs and your beliefs and their beliefs and their beliefs change the collective beliefs, etc. There's no such thing as a wasted word or a wasted thought or a wasted emotion. They are always pointing us to something that is life affirming or something that is non-life affirming. Our invitation is to discern. Chris Franken says, alignment is a vibration, a movement of energy that feels grounded and enlightened. And it propels you gracefully forward toward your values. Okay. Vibration. In the same way that hitting a quote unquote wrong note or something that is off key signals us to get it back into tune, we are invited to look at the vibration to identify the alignment. If I know that the vibration, when I hit the F sharp or whatever the chord is, if I'm aware of what that vibration is supposed to sound like and it's not, then I'm invited to get it into the alignment. So there it is. There it is. But we can't do that if we're not present in our lives. I was just watching a documentary called God Save Texas. And in the first episode, they were talking about the number of prisons in the Huntsville area. And they were asking some of the high school students, or some of the college students in the area about what it's like living in a prison town. Because there's so many, like 7 or 8 prisons in the immediate area. And a lot of them were referencing the idea of, I don't think about it. I make sure to put my mind on other things. I don't like thinking about it, so in essence, I bypass it. In essence, I ignore it because it makes me too uncomfortable. We can't get into alignment. We can't reach self-transcendence and self-actualization by ignoring and denying what's happening in our lives. In the same way that the spine connects, we are connection creating, pattern creating beings. That's why eons ago, there were people who looked up into the skies, looked up into the heavens, and played connect the dots. It's where constellations came from. The point being, it doesn't matter where the dot is. It doesn't matter what the thought is. It doesn't matter what the activity is. It is possible to create, to identify, how does that connect to this? How does this connect to that? And what is it forming? So my thoughts about me, my thoughts about you, my thoughts about whoever and whatever, how are they connected? And what pattern, what shape do they create by those connections? Because there is no isolated anything. God is all there is. So there are no isolated incidents. Cause and effect is everywhere and impacting everything. Spirit is everywhere and impacting everything that it is, always and in all ways. So when you pause and look into your life, where are the patterns and where are the connections? When we think of this idea of fulfillment, which was mentioned, do we know what fulfillment is? See, What exactly is fulfillment and how do you know if you have it? That's a really good question. So, fulfillment is the ability to achieve something that you desire, or something that was promised to you, or something that was predicted. It's a level of satisfaction, accomplishment, happiness as a result of. It's having met a certain requirement or condition, such as graduating college or getting a degree or getting a new job. It's the idea of performing a specific task, some duty, or a role as required. When you order from, that online company that a lot of people don't like because of how they are paying employees and mistreating stuff, and how the founder of that organization is so wealthy but doesn't really pay enough in taxes. That thing. Yeah. When the order that was placed arrives, the order was fulfilled. So in our own lives, we're invited to, as Heschel says, people's true fulfillment. Remember what it said: satisfaction. People's true fulfillment depends upon communion with that which transcends them. We're going to talk more about this in a moment. What transcends you? In the Japanese art of Kyodo, Japanese archery, it's not about hitting the target. Truth in Kyodo is manifested in the shooting, and it is shooting in a way where the shot is pure and right minded. Three elements must be present, must be in alignment: the attitude, the movement, and the technique, aligned and operating, expressed in perfect harmony. A true shot in Kyudo is not about hitting the center of the target. It is about where the arrow can be said, mental equivalent, to already exist in the target before the arrow has even been released. It is knowing before the evidence, before the experience, before the condition demonstrates it. Dr. Holmes says the ultimate goal of life does not mean that we shall ever arrive at a spiritual destination where everything remains static and inactive. That's stagnation. Remember what I said about the triangle, the pyramid, and the ebb and the flow, the movement and cycle through, and same thing. We are not meant to get to the place of that's why it's before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, just sit around and do nothing. Can I go back to before enlightenment? There was more to do. That's why it's after enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. He goes on to say, that which to our present understanding seems an ultimate goal will, when attained, be but the starting point of a new and further evolution, ever evolving consciousness, open at the top and open at the bottom. There is always more. Breathe. Carolyn Miss says, once we are awakened to something, a truth or an injustice, we are held accountable and must take action according to that truth. We cannot ignore or suppress that awareness. There is no going back. Once you know, you know. The question then is, what do you do? Once you have self-actualized, once you have transcended, once you are awakened, what do you do? Well, once again, what transcends them? True fulfillment, what transcends you? Well, what does that even mean? Well, let's look at some folks who fulfillment, it transcended them. The communion with that which transcended them. All of these individuals, including those who are still alive on this side of, they are doing that which transcends them. They are operating in communion with that which transcends them. Now, I know you're asking, well, what does that mean? It transcends them. It means it moves. It's not just for them. It's not even just about them. It's about the energy that transforms the planet. Breathe. Self-transcendence at its core is about transcending, or quote unquote, rising above the self and relating to that which is greater than the self. Relating to that which is greater than our own individual lives. It's relating to the community, relating to the planet, relating to the universe, relating to that which is God. It's not just about love for me, it's about love for we. And in simpler terms, it is the realization that you are a small part of a greater whole. And in so doing, you act accordingly. That's what we mean when we talk about self-transcendence. Now, that being the case, one way that this idea hits for me is recently a social media influencer who is also a clinical psychologist, Dr. Raquel Martin, was talking about legacy. And this is a paraphrase version of what she said, but your legacy is what you leave people with now. It's not about what you leave for them once you have died, right? It is the feeling that you leave within them while they're still in your presence, or once you have walked out or gotten on a plane and left. What do they still feel as a result of you? That is your legacy. And that legacy is a demonstration of self-transcendence. And how you consciously work on your legacy is what moves you to that space of self-actualization. And if you're so inclined, ask some people, what do you feel as a result of my presence? Dr. Holmes says, compassion and caring are the ties that bind us together in mutual understanding and in the unified attempt to uncover the divinity in each other. Compassion is the most gentle of all human virtues, for it is the very outpouring of the divine givingness through all. The divine givingness as and through and to all. How does compassion give you the opportunity to transcend, to heal, to connect? The science of mind and spirit is the process of self-actualization. It offers us some tools. There are many tools that we can interweave into our lives, such as trauma-informed therapy, somatic therapy and practices, and more. Science of Mind and Spirit offers us some tools, and we bring in other tools that help us to move from bad, quote unquote, to good, to great, to grand, to transcendence, and beyond. The tools, they help us to identify and to intentionally align our mental equivalent in more and more life-affirming ways through the active practice of living in and expressing our authentic, divine selves. Its methods of self-reflection and introspection help us to gain greater awareness of what we value, what we think, what we believe, what we are passionate about, and what we choose our purposes to be. It is through these practices that we align our lives with, we align our core truths with, we align our very being with. And because this is not a one and you're done deal, we engage this practice, this way of life daily, moment by moment, breath by breath, thought by thought. Moment by moment, it is a lifelong journey. Science of mind and spirit helps us to be the catalyst for our continued individual and collective evolution. Today's affirmation declaration, if you agree, if it resonates with you, say it with me the second time. My outer life demonstrates my alignment with the truth of my most authentic self. Together. My outer life demonstrates my alignment with the truth of my most authentic self. So it is. This week's journal questions or the Thursday night study group questions. What are some things you used to value that you no longer value? What caused those values to change? What values could you adopt now that would be greater life affirming and more beneficial to you individually, to those who are closest to you, and ultimately to the world? Number 2, how do you know when you are living in or out of, quote unquote, out of alignment with your desired life affirming values? How do you know? What's the evidence? Number 3, what often gets in the way of activating and living from your desired life affirming values? What is in the way? What is blocking your good, your great, your grand? And then lastly, what are some examples in our current world of individuals activating their values and their intentions in both life affirming and life denying ways? One reason this is, you ever notice when you go to the restaurant or whatnot and you get spinach in your teeth, you don't know it's there, but someone else can see it. So this last question is, it helps us to become more self-aware when when we're able to see it in another. So this is asking you, where can you see other people activating their values and their intentions in life affirming and non-life affirming ways? If you can identify it, you can discern between the two, you can see it clearly, then it is easier for you to do the same for yourself. Breathe. as we enter into that space and that atmosphere that is ever present, because we don't simply engage in prayer. We don't simply do this thing called prayer. We live it. We are it. It is us. I simply say this knowing that that which is principle, that which is the presence, that which is all that is, incarnating in, through, and as all, is the very expression of, demonstration of all that we talked about: transcendence, self-actualization, belonging, community, love, needs being fulfilled. That which the universe is provides and offers all of it. Not like it's giving it to us, but it is simply providing it, because that is what it does. An artist must do art. A musician must create music. A poet must create poetry. That which is the divine must create that which is the divine. And our awareness of this is what now gives us the capacity to embody that divinity. It's already there. But we choose intentionally and consciously to embody it. In the same way that the breath, it's already there, but we choose to consciously embody it as we breathe for meditation. We embody that which is the divine, the truth of our being, the core essence of all that we are. And we move. Greater and greater life-affirming, greater and greater life-affirming, greater and greater life-affirming expressions of our own self-actualization, which is simply a symptom of, a byproduct of our self-transcendence, how we show up in the world as a life-affirming presence, as the very demonstration of a world that works for all. A 21st century New Thought Good Samaritan, here to be the embodiment of love. And the law says yes. That means it's already done. We breathe, we acknowledge, we accept. And so it is. And so it is. Much love and appreciation, everyone. I believe we do have, don't remember what the slide said, I do believe we have a fellowship after in a moment. So if so, I will see you there more than likely. Otherwise, I will see you next week. Blessings.